But Noel was just saying just now about how he enjoyed it at Manchester United and at West Ham, but how, you know, they played off on what they had at Manchester United, and I think that was exactly the case really, because he was at United and had won the cup in '63, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And we went there in '64, and we played at home here against Manchester United the week before the semi-final, and we lost 2-0 at home to Manchester United. And Dave Gaskell, his name, the goalkeeper came off and said to Morrow as he came off, "No point in turning up next week." He said, "You've got no chance." And we was playing at Hillsborough, and we went to Hillsborough, and I think you were watching. The ground was like that.
It was thick mud, wasn't it?
All of a sudden, Ron Greenwood just spoke to us, talk about using space and areas that day, and he says, "Just get it in there, just keep turning them around, keep turning them around." They were a miles better team than us overall, but we stuffed them that day 3-1, simply because of our knowledge and our being able to adapt conditions. They're still playing the ball about in this mud and getting nowhere, and we won, and it was tremendous.
Yeah.
I think just leading on to the other side, as far as what they've just said, I think what we did at West Ham in the period with Malcolm and Noel, and then with Morrow and Peters and Hurst and all them other lads, is I think what we did is we gave West Ham supporters an awful lot of enjoyment, and I think whilst we didn't win a lot of things, there was so many unexpected things used to go on the football field that they never knew what was going to happen next, and I think they enjoyed it immensely. And I think that was a tremendous contribution that we made to the game in those days because of that. I think we used to take abuse for it but the reason we took abuse because we never won anything. If once we won the FA Cup and then they won the European Cup, and they began to get a little bit more respect for them, and they used to sort of, they ain't bad, they can play a bit. I mean, I wasn't in the side, and I saw West Ham destroy a great Leeds United side 7-0 here one night. Unbelievable football, and they could still do that, and they can still do that to this day. But the unfortunate thing, as long as they're a football club, they'll never, ever, ever win the First Division Championship. It's just something about them. They haven't got that steel and will, as far as I'm concerned, to go on, or money now, to go on and win.
But the tradition for the good values of the game is still there, which is the important thing.
I think it's been there for years and years and years, and I think that he helped to bring it out, and we took it on, and I think others after us has taken it on brilliantly, and I think they're a credit. I think they haven't always got the credit they deserve, but I think they're a credit to the game.
Right.
And they play the game properly, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, they don't whack their way around the football.
So any funny stories, Noel?
I remember, like, John wasn't the best trainer in the world. He was lazy and he was moody, and consequently, training and cross-country running and long-distance running was neither mine or his forte. When the ball came out, he came to life. So we were training at Grange Farm, and I think Malcolm had just come back after having his operation, and we used to go on a cross-country run. And there was a little man who since passed away, Johnny Smith, who was a wonderful runner, could run all day. And this fella used to get out of the coach probably a mile further than we used to have to run. And the run would be about 6 or 7 miles. And it was through Hainault and up and down hills. And terrible things used to happen. We used to be given, like Kenny Brown, who had a big fat ass, he'd be in a Stephanie Bowman's suit underneath. We would be in sweaters, polo neck sweaters up to there, in the heat of 80. Well, now, as you can imagine, like when people run the marathon, they just wear a vest and everything light and the body weight's enough and the blood getting hot. So Ted used to give us these sweaters to try and reduce weight. Well, he hated it and I hated it. Malcolm was quite a good runner. He wasn't the best in the club, but he was very willing and pushed himself to the absolute limit. We couldn't achieve that. So we were running this day, and he used to shout at me, "Stop, you silly bastard." He said, "What do you want? That won't make you a better player." And I didn't need that, and I'd be tired, my chest would be heaving, and I thought, oh well, I may as well stop. So Ernie Gregory was always last in the long distance running. So Ernie Gregory was about 100 yards ahead of us this day, coming up the hill, and he thought, for once in my life, I'm not going to be last. And this poor Ernie Gregory, 16-stone man, running uphill with sweater track bottoms, and he thought, must get there. So the double-decker bus came along from Hainault. So John and I flagged down the bus. The bus driver stopped. We got in the back of the bus, and about a quarter of a mile up we catch up with Ernie Gregory, and we shout at Ernie Gregory, and he looks and he thinks, oh Christ, no. So he just collapsed in a heap, Ernie Gregory. We jumped out of the bus at the top near the gate at Grange Farm, sprinted down. Ted's there, well done lads, well done Noel, well done John. And Ernie Gregory tailed in last, and he went, you bastards. Couldn't tell anybody, poor Ernie Gregory, couldn't tell Ted that we'd cheated. So that was one of the stories about him. But also another story about John. We were playing in a freezing cold morning, a practice match, and practice matches were just going through the motions. You played a practice match and that's it. And really, basically, you didn't learn very much from the practice match. You just went out there and you played. So John didn't feel like it this morning. He was right back and he was messing about. He was losing possession. He was this and he was that. And Ted, who was up in the stand, I think he used to have a megaphone then, you know, he'd shout down, he'd say, John, come on, get on with it. John says, look Ted, I saw you play. He said, and that's enough. And
I had a little story. I was lucky enough to go to South Africa in 1956 with the England touring party. So they give you an England blazer. So I came back and the next year, and like him and I were mates. Like all of us was. I used to be everywhere together, and we used to be in the and I always remember that they used to put hot stuff on people's
wintergreen, you know,
balls and that. You know, there'd be nothing. You'd be sat on a treatment table, and then somebody come in there talking to you, and they'd say, "There you go, mate," and they'd just be rubbing between your legs. And the next thing is your balls, you stick hot as hot. And I've got one day. I'm in the dressing room. We're in the afternoon, and we're training. And I come in first, and I got this in this bottle, and I put some stuff in between his
underpants,
and I'm stood the opposite side of the room to him, and I'm watching him get dressed, and he's pulled his underpants up like this, and then he's pulled his stripes up his trousers, and he stood there like that. And he's gone, "You bastard, Bondy," he said. And he went straight to the Vaseline jar, and he got this big jar, handful of Vaseline, he went straight down the front of my England blazer. Oh, I could have cried. I don't think, for 3 weeks, I don't think we spoke, but you know, he was so right in what he did, but I to this day, I'll be on my own sometimes at home, and I'll think about it. I could see his face, and you can feel this stuff heating his balls up.
Yeah.
Amazing that.
Yeah, millions.
We went to Sheffield Wednesday the year after we got promotion, and we was top of the table, and we went in at half time 4-0 down, and Ted Fenton come in and he said, "Come on lads," he said, I don't know who he was kidding. He said, "I've seen these games won before from this position." I thought, who are you? You're kidding. 4-0 down. Anyway, we started the second half, and the ball come across and went behind for a goal kick on my side of the pitch. And the next thing, he's come running back over the goal line and picked this ball up. I said, "What are you doing? Leave it there." He said, "We've got to get on with the game." I said, "Leave it there." I said, "Well, they can't score any more as long as that ball is there." But like little things like that. Like,
You got any?
No, when Noel was young, when he was 18, he first came in the side. he used to play left back, you know, and I used to say to him, if it was a decent winger, like a good player, a bit quick, you know, give him a bit of a hard time. I used to say to him, "No, just send him down the line, just send him down the line." So Noel used to come, he used to make him go that way, go down the line. And as he went past, I used to smash him. Like that. No, on the chicken run, you know, the chicken run. And there's all these wooden balls, and he used to hit the wood and all through the track, you know.
Yeah.
And he never gave him any more problems.
It was much more physical in those days, wasn't it?
Well, we were only saying early on that I was the first fella to get sent off, I think, for years and years and years at West Ham. I got sent off at Bristol Rovers in a game, and it was you know, it was unheard of, and it got a lot of publicity about Noel Cantwell being the first player for something like 10 years. John was only saying he can't even remember him getting his name taken, did you?
No, God.
And I'm what sure you probably Malcolm would have got his name taken for
I
mouthing at the referee.
I got booked for after the match had finished,
Yeah.
calling the referee about certain decisions,
But,
and he booked me.
It's gone out of all proportion now, isn't it? The way fellas get booked and 2 yellow cards, they're off.
So he got sent off at Bristol Rovers because of doing pit. Pitty had gone over the top or something. He was a dirty little so-and-so, Pitty at Bristol Rovers, and he'd done him and he'd retaliated, some got sent off. And I always remember, I've told this story so many times in my football career at different times, and he said, I've got a memory like an elephant, Pitty. He said, I won't forget. And they carried him off up here the next week. Next year he came up here. Carried Pitty off.
I think I'll give him one that day as well.
Didn't mess about.
I mean, that was the thing in those days, wasn't it? I mean, if you had a little winger, then the big guys at the back used to protect them and so on.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there was some
But
good
it was a
wingers.
very hard game in those days. I mean, they've got it easy in fairness. I mean, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we were better than them or anything stupid like that. But the fullbacks have got it easy today and compared when every week that him and I used to go out and play, you used to know you was going to play against a winger.
An individual.
They
You
used
were
to have
playing
left
against
and
an
right wingers
individual.
every week, didn't they, Mark?
Yeah.
Every week.
Like when I used to have to play sometimes at internationals there, you'd play against maybe Finney or something. But that was your job. You didn't have protection. You didn't have loads of people around the back and people closing people. You had a balance sort of a thing. When the player was on the other side, you had to come round and cover, which meant that if it was transferred quickly, the winger would have oceans of room and they'd attack you. But now bad players can be covered up in the game today. Like if you're fit and well and can tackle, you'll probably get a living, I would think, at the game. Whereas if you get exposed often enough in the 50s or even later than that, you might find that you were in trouble. Like I used to play against Brian Douglas, and I remember the first time I played against him was here, and he's a small little fella with big shin pads, and I thought, oh, it'll be brilliant. First half I played well and he didn't do anything. The second half he absolutely murdered me, little fella coming up to you and just drinking. But I was on my own most of the time. It wasn't until, as Malcolm said, that you'd say to somebody, come across, when he boots it past, I'll be there and whack. But invariably you were on your own. You were on your own, weren't you?
Oh yeah, it was, wasn't it? I
Any
mean,
other funny
today, if you haven't got 2 against 1 every time they get the ball, it's something wrong, isn't it? I mean, they've always got double cover, haven't they, Paul?
Treble coverers.
Or treble cover.
Yeah.
I mean, you tried playing against at that particular time Cliffy Jones
Yeah.
and not having any cover. I mean,
You see, they could run past you.
Any stories about Cliffy Jones? I mean, he always used to fall over the ball and get free kicks, didn't he?
Oh, he was a good player.
Cliffy Jones.
He was a good player.
Good.
He was
quick.
deceptive.
Light in the air for
Yeah.
magnificent 5-post balls.
Yeah. That Spurs team, I think, possibly might go down as one of the greatest sides. The one with Danny
61.
and Dave and
62.
Cliffy, and they were a very good. Yeah, they were a very good team. Dave Mackay was an exceptional player. Yeah, probably one of the greatest.
Any other funny stories?
I can't remember too many about you, Malcolm. Every day seemed to be funny when Malcolm was there. I'll tell you 1 or 2 funny stories about Malcolm. I don't know how he got involved, but not alone was he an influence in the coaching, but he was also the union representative. Now the union rep had to collect the union dues every week, which was £0.50, 2 and 6. And Malcolm had his great big book of union dues, so he'd come and collect the union dues, and then this was the Friday, and then after we'd be here, he'd say we'd go to Dagenham, or we'd go to Hackney Wick to the dogs. So we'd play up the union dues. So several times the union used to get on, Malcolm, you haven't sent the kit check yet. No problem. So when he'd have a touch and have a win, then they'd get paid. If he didn't have a touch, he never got paid.
God knows what some of the players would have thought if they didn't know that.
I know.
If Muzzy and Groisey would have known that.
Yeah. Oh, they used to die. Well, we didn't, you see, £10 a week, and as he was saying a story about Malcolm and the rented accommodation. I was in digs just down the road from here, and it was 35 bob a week. Malcolm had a house which the club provided for 30 bob a week, and Malcolm was playing very, very well. But it was again the manager's job to get the rent almost, and did you pay your rent? And Malcolm tells the story himself about his rent, and he was called to the office one of these Fridays, and Ted Fenton said, look Malcolm, said, you got a problem. He said, what's wrong? He said, you haven't paid your rent for 30 weeks.
70, 75,
75 weeks. So he says, you've got to pay your rent. Malcolm said, well, I'm playing well, Teddy, you're not happy. As if that is the priority, to play well, not to worry about the rent. And I don't suppose they ever got it.
No,
Did they get it, Malcolm?
No, yeah, I went home to my wife that night. I got me wages the Friday at 10. And I went home and I said to Beth, I'm going to West Ham Dogs tonight. And she said, certainly, darling, you know, like they do. You know. So she said, why?
He come home a week later, by the way.
I said, why? I said, I owe 75 weeks rent. She said, why didn't you pay the rent? I said, I forgot. So anyway, I go out the road and I get on the 670 bus and I go into Barking side. I get the Barking side, I get the Barking, I get off and I get on another bus that goes right into the West Ham grandstand. So I'm sitting on the bus and I'm looking at all the houses and there's people watching the television and having half a pint of beer, smoking a pipe, reading the papers, you know. And I'm looking at all them terraced houses. And I thought, why can't you be like them? Just be ordinary, just pay the rent and be ordinary like them. Anyway, I went to the Dogs and I backed 7 winners. I come out and I got in a taxi and I'm driving back and I'm going past all them houses and I'm looking at the windows out there, I'm looking through the window out there. And I went, how do those poor bastards live like that?
Still owe 75 perhaps a week's rent.
Yeah. Another thing, you see, in your time, before we all got together, the boots were big, Mansfield Hotspurs and things like that. And you got one pair of boots at the start of the season, and they were to last you the whole season.
You had to stud 'em.
If you had to do your own cobbling, do the nails, file them, and everything like that. So we did all those things ourselves. Cleaned your boots and all, did a lot. So Malcolm got the idea that we were carrying too much weight. The shin pads were too big. The boots were too heavy. Everything was too heavy to cart round. So he got the idea. We changed the strip. Then he played without shin pads, and eventually I played without shin pads. We didn't have any pads at all. Then the boots came into operation, and Malcolm came in one day, said to me, I've got terrific boots. These little lightweight, look at them. So he had bought them in a cycle shop. You know the little shoes that the cyclists wear? This is what he was going to think. So Ted Fenton thought, oh my God, how many pairs of these are we going to go through in a year? This little lightweight, they only lasted about 6 weeks, and he wanted another pair. And every now and again, Malcolm said, Ted, I need a new pair of boots. And poor old Ted, like, he was constantly writing out chitties for new boots. And that's, again, a change of what it used to be with these bloody great big things, which you'd have to spend a month trying to break them in, trying to get them to fit. So.
You'd have had some, when Noel told the story about Pudding Lane, what it was called, we used to get a coach to the end of Pudding Lane. They used to have to run right up Pudding Lane, down. That was where Ted used to be there. He used to be in his car. That's the only training he used to do.
Yeah, Ted
He used to watch us in his car. He used to run. He used to be at spots during the course of the run to make sure you kept going past them, like, you know. And that always used to be a nightmare. We used to make it our duty to get off the coach first, because we was the senior players. We'd get off, so we'd get a good start. We'd get a start on Johnny Smith, maybe a quarter of a mile. Before we'd gone a half a mile, he'd been overtaken us. We'd left us. And Ernie Gregory always used to be the butt.
Yeah.
And I rang up there one morning, and I think he'd gone by then, I'm not sure. And I'm running behind Ernie, and I'm thinking, I ain't going to catch you, and I'm struggling. I'm last, stone last, and I'm plodding behind Ernie. I hated running. And I thought, what am I going to do? I thought, you tread on the back of his shoes. So I get up the back of him, and I went bump on the back, took his shoe right off. You bastard, Bond, he said. I never see him anymore. He was done. As long as I didn't finish last, I was well pleased.
You know what the pity of all that was?
Yeah.
That running was useless.
Yeah.
You know, I found out later in my life that when I went and studied at Salford University, them long runs are useless.
Yeah.
You know, for football players.
Yeah.
Any straight running is not good for football players.
Yeah.
You know, it's all changing direction,
Yeah.
all that sort of checking out, checking in, and all that type of training.
Mm.
All that running you did, you know.
And particularly with heavy, you can imagine the size.
make you sick.
We used to army issued. There were army issued the sweaters. You know, this great big grey sweater, green. That's what we used to have to train.
And that's why the players didn't like training, because there was no salt point in the training. There was nothing. Nobody.
There wasn't either, was it?
No,
No.
never
It was
varied.
boring as hell.
Well,